Hi everyone, Shawn Thompson here, spiritual counselor and psychic medium for over 20 years. Thank you for tuning in with me for the second half as I talk about a very sensitive and challenging subject of suicide. In my first video, I shared with you 5 hot topic points regarding what happens to your loved one after they commit suicide. Let me recap those for you now. Number 1, they do not go to hell or purgatory. They are lovingly received into the spiritual realm for healing and soul development. 2, they receive a life review so that they may understand the consequences of their actions as they relate to their present and future lifetimes and the impact their decision had on others. Number 3, during this life review, they are offered extra love and support as they integrate back into the spiritual realm and detach from their human experiences and feelings associated from their decision in taking their life. 4, they are offered the opportunity to work with others who are struggling with similar situations in order to reduce karma for soul development and to truly understand the impact their decision had on others. Once this is understood and they have given back through helping others, then they are offered a transition into creating the next lifetime if they choose to do so. And 5, they work really hard to connect with the ones they left behind to offer love, understanding, forgiveness, and support. They want desperately for their loved ones to heal and to continue their life purpose as easily as possible. There's a lot of love and compassion on the other side to embrace situations like suicide. There are also a lot of differences between the world we live in and the realm we return to upon death as well. First, I want to explain a little bit about these differences between the dualistic, judgmental world that we currently live in versus the loving and accepting world of the spiritual realm, since most of you worry if your loved one will be judged for committing suicide. I want you to try and visualize the spiritual realm as if it was in layers that were horizontal, not vertical. Because when we think of layers in vertical form, our mind automatically ranks them in high to low or better to worse. The spiritual realm is not set up in rankings. It is set up in layers that are all valuable, equal, and full of lessons that each layer specializes in. They are solely focused on helping a soul understand the lesson at hand. This is where I've been shown that souls go to when they have chosen to take their life. They are embraced, loved, and shown compassion for their choice and then helped, guided, and educated about their choice, action, and options for future decision-making skills. They are not judged, shamed, or guilted because the emotions simply don't exist in the spiritual realm, and that certainly is not helpful for soul development either. Once a soul has learned everything they can within this layer of learning, then they're offered the opportunity to move forward and either create their next life or continue learning other ways or within other layers. I hope this brings a good understanding for how things work on the other side. Now, let's address the question of soul contracts and free will. I think this is one of the most important points for those of us living to understand and can really shed some light on why things happen the way they do. What I'm about to share with you is enlightening, powerful, and very deep, so stay with me here. This information comes directly from the spiritual realm as shown to me when I crossed over into the light back in 2006, as well as validated time and time again through the thousands of readings that I've done throughout the years. Now, before you were born, you had taken great time to plan out lessons to learn during each lifetime. Family, friends, enemies, pets, children, jobs, accidents, experiences, and so forth were handpicked by you to play an integral part in your journey. You decided what lessons you wanted to learn for soul development, wrote the script, and agreed to walk the journey. You knew that everything would always be okay, and that you would return back to the spiritual realm for a life review so that you could learn from your experiences and further your soul development. And that's how the story began. We all do this every time. You're not allowed to remember everything now that you've contracted with each person, but which you'll feel is a familiar sense as it unfolds. If you were allowed to remember everything, it would not be the same experience for your soul. Think of it as a movie script or a play. You've determined the theme, the characters, the storyline, and the ending, with twists and turns, surprises and upheavals, love and forgiveness, all rolled in to a major action-packed thriller. It's just like that. After the movie, all the actors take a bow together and relish in the part that each of them played and how well it was played out. They congratulate each other and start designing the sequel. Now, a burning question I get asked all the time is if suicide is written into a soul's contract or not. The short answer is yes, or let's just say it has the potential to be written in for it. The longer version involves an understanding that we all have free will and can decide whether or not to act on it at any given time during a lifespan. Let's dig in a little deeper into this. When you're designing your life, you tend to add in difficult lessons at various parts of the journey. Some of you have worked on these lessons throughout several lifetimes, and others have written it into as a new experience that you have yet to learn. When a particular difficult lesson presents itself, you are given support, encouragement, and the ability to choose how you are going to work through that situation. You're given everything and everyone needed to support yourself through that lesson. You're never given more than you can handle, although at times it may not feel that way. Suicide is also an option, but not the best choice because it starts your whole process over again and impacts others as well. If you choose to opt out of the lesson or do not ask for help, thus deciding to end your life, then the contract is severed and at that point, and you return back home to the spiritual realm. Now you go through this process of life review, learning and addressing your actions, helping others who are struggling with similar challenges, and connecting with your loved ones still, living on the other side to offer understanding and love during the recovery. You go through all of this process again. This process takes as long as your soul needs to learn and recover from the experience. Your loved ones who agreed to be a part of this journey, if the potential of your suicide transpired, have certain parts of their own contract activated and must address their lessons immediately and with great intensity at this time. Let me give you an example. Let's just say that you wanted to learn courage and inner strength. A lesson is presented to you in your lifetime to challenge you to invoke courage and inner strength as a coping skill to move through it. And one of your soul group members that you incarnated with wanted to learn about forgiveness and compassion. Now, suicide may present an opportunity for the both of you to learn this lesson together. The two of you incarnate with the suicide potential written into both of your contracts. In comes the challenging event that you planned for growth and soul development. For the suicide potential not to happen, you would have to learn to ask for help and to help yourself during this challenging time. If you could not do this and decided to take your life, then it would activate your loved one's contract in having to learn how to forgive themselves, as well as you having to learn how to have compassion all the way around. Planning your life each time is both complicated and difficult for us to truly understand. It's not all set in stone as you would think, and it's more fluid than you realize. Each individual contract is tied to another contract and has various activation points depending on current actions. The best way I can describe this is there are multiple opportunities to teach you your lesson And depending on where you're at any given moment, based on every decision you've made, would determine the nature of the experience. When all is said and done, and you have learned some lesson you set forth out to learn in the divine plan, so it is. I'll save this for another video, but that's the short version of it, basically. I can tell you this, though. If suicide was not written in as a potential in your contract, the spiritual realm is allowed to intervene and help. These are often called miracles. This always sparks the question of why my son's life was taken and hers was saved. Am I not worthy? Was my son not loved? And so on. Please know that God is not a punishing God and truly honors the free will that was given to us upon coming to earth. Everything was agreed upon and very transparent when designed prior to life. Trust that even though you may not understand or agree with this, you can be angry with God all you want for circumstances, but God is not the one who exercised free will. A comforting thought is this, though. God is big enough to handle all your blame, anger, and guilt while you find the inner strength to work through it. And know that part of your lesson, if suicide was written into your world as a potential in any capacity, was to find your strength and remember who you are in your journey through it. You have everything you need to survive, thrive, and return home safe and sound. The last point sheds light on various reasons why suicide might occur outside of an intentional act. Suicide can be chosen as an option for several different reasons other than a direct decision to check out. Your loved one can be in chronic and debilitating pain that they don't ever see getting better. It can steal the sweetness of life from them, and they just don't want to bear to live throughout their life throughout this way. They can be addicted to street drugs or medicated because of an illness and accidentally overdose. Their quality of life can be greatly diminished and request an assisted suicide to release them from the suffering. Or they can be suffering from a mental illness that would cause them to take their life suddenly due to depression, psychotic voices, or reckless behavior. Regardless of what reasoning behind the act is, the act of taking one's life is difficult to accept and cope with no matter what. All of these categories fall more into the aftermath of what the living has to deal with, more so than what your deceased loved one is dealing with on the other side. It is traumatic and heart-wrenching nonetheless to have to cope with the loss of a loved one knowing that they were in pain and so unhappy. It's harder for those living in these situations than it is for the dearly departed, and that's the real tragedy. It's not seen any different across the veil, but experienced all the same by those who have to endure the reality of the situation. Oftentimes, those left behind might feel guilty, responsible, confused, worried, or simply lost after someone has deliberately taken their life. Please know that suicide is rarely an act of revenge, fault, intention, or blame. A person who follows through with suicide is in a lot of pain and just wants to be released from the pain. They usually do not think or realize the finality of it. They typically cannot think beyond the pain they are experiencing and often act impulsively, planned or not. They ask for help in their own ways, but are often dismissed or not taken seriously until it's too late. Oftentimes, they don't ask for help, or they hide the pain so well that no one ever notices. Regardless, please know, it is never your fault, and you are not responsible for someone exercising their own free will regarding their life contract. Needless to say, please do your part and pay attention to whenever you think someone might be at risk. Now, we have covered a lot on this topic, and I hope that it has shed some light into the bigger picture of life and death as it relates to our personal responsibility for it. If you've experienced the loss of a loved one by suicide, I highly encourage you to schedule a reading so that they can support you in your healing and understanding of their loss. It doesn't take away the pain, but it offers comfort and peace, knowing that they are okay and still have a connection with you. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to speaking with you soon.